everybody do.
Alright, y'all, I'm back with another bang of the young boys today, man, and amen. And today, I'm back with a very special type of reaction video for y'all young boys today, man. So, alright, y'all, today, we're going to be sitting there discussing the season finale. Not gonna lie, y'all, the Invincible season finale was absolutely fire in my opinion. So in the first part of the video, I'm going to explain basically all the events that happened in the season finale. It's season 3 episode number 8 to be very specific. The later part of the video, I'll have me and my brothers having a debate about some questions or some back and forth we've been having among each other about Invincible and the season finale and things of that nature. So that's how it's gonna go. And one of those, originally this was gonna be 2 videos, y'all, but then I started recording the debate and that debate went on for like an hour long, and then I also had to realize this video was going to be like 30+ minutes, so I decided to just make it 2 separate parts, but it's not going to affect y'all guys too much, so stay tuned for the second video, y'all. Questions that me and my brothers are going to sit there and discuss is, could I defeat Conquest or other Viltrumites with a very certain character's powers or skill set? And I think it's going to bring forth a very interesting conversation. I can't wait to sit there and show y'all whose powers I believe I could defeat Conquest in, and hey, yeah, that's gonna be fun, man. So the episode begins with Mark getting approached by Conquest. So Conquest is this giant jacked old man with scars and a freaking Thanos like robotic arm. He just has a badass freaking character design. I love his character design. It's something about a jacked old man that just seems intimidating, because you already know that like everyone thinks the young 25-year-old bodybuilder is real strength. Nah, you ain't never seen real strength until you met real grown man, old man strength. It's a real thing, man.
I don't know if it's old man strength or what.
But we started the episode with Conquest descending on Mark. Mark is still pissed about the last episode because the Invincible invasion of his girlfriend Eve and a lot of innocent people got caught in crossfire and died during that invasion. So he's still kind of pissed. He's kind of pissed that Sex Teams kind of set him up to sit there and look like this giant evil villain and everything is always his fault. And then Conquest, in the wake and destruction of his whole planet, comes down ready for phase, and Invincible said, hey, you could catch these hands. They ready to eat for everybody. So he lunges at Conquest and they do a clash and they do a back and forth. And it seems as though Mark actually has the upper hand on Conquest for a little bit. And Conquest has this giant chilling speech about how he wants Mark to resist. Conquest actually enjoys carnage. He enjoys carnage and actually hurting people. He enjoys hurting people, and he says he's not in the business of saving planets or really trying to make people planets better and taking them into the Viltrum Empire. Basically not trying to sugarcoat anything. He's like, no, I'm here to conquer. I'm here to do exactly what my name means and give this giant Thanos-like fist to your face.
One of these guys is a real sicko.
So they start going back and forth. Mark presses him and even gets to the point where he makes him bleed and then throws him in outer space. And once this super cool scene, like I've actually heard this scene with the blood heart and everything was something added on. It wasn't in the comics or anything like that. That was just something the show director added in, but it was so freaking chilling and cool to see him take his blood in outer space and then make it to a heart and then flick it at Mark. That scene was absolutely crazy and chilling and showed how unhinged this character is.
Honey, he is a psycho.
But basically, once this happened, the fight started to take a little bit of a turn.
And here we go.
He starts pressing Mark and started beating the dog piss out of him. It was at one hit. I think it was one hit to Mark's jaw, and Mark's whole face got swollen up, and that's when everything just started going left. Mark starts to get beat on by Conquest so bad. His face is all swollen up after the first hit, and then Conquest just start going in on our boy and everything. So then we cut to Mrs. Grayson, Oliver, and then her new, I guess, side piece or something like that. I don't know. I guess they're like an official relationship at this point. But then we cut to the Graysons, and Oliver, you know, he's so hungry to sit there and prove himself. He's ready to go out and help his older brother. So usually the mom's like, no, you can't go out there. But this time she said one thing: do not let this dude grab you. Just keep pivoting and moving. Do not let him grab you and be safe. And of course, he eventually gets grabbed, but we'll get to that part later in the episode. But once we get to this point, Oliver nods his head and he heads off to go help his brother. Then we cut back to Invincible, and Conquest is still beating the dog piss out of our boy. And then it even gets to the point where Mark tries to, I guess, surrender. I don't know what he was trying to say. Maybe he was trying to talk no jutsu Conquest or something, but it gets to the point where Mark is all beaten and bloody, and he's like, hey, I need a break. Hold on. Like, you are actually pressing me way too hard, bro. But like, Conquest sat there and said, are you crazy? And jacks up Mark and says he's having a time of his life just sitting here putting belt to ass like this, and he does not care about any type of surrenders. There's not gonna be a chance of surrender. There's not gonna be no compromise. This is not Naruto. It's not Naruto and nothing like that. He gets right back to ready to beat the shit out of Mark, and then Oliver, he steps in, and I think he drop kicks Conquest off his brother. And then Invincible tries to get Oliver out of there and try to convince him to just fly back and get away from the whole scene and everything. Then we cut to Cecil, and he's getting stressed out watching Mark get beaten to a bloody pulp in 4K high definition. He's just sitting there watching on the big screen, Mark getting his asshole absolutely plunged. So then he tries to sit there and go to, I forgot the dude's name, but the dude that made the robots. He goes to him, he has him employed at this point, and apparently he took the dead Mark variants and then tried to turn them into the cyborg, but like a super powered version of them. So, and I'm pretty sure that's gonna go perfectly well when Mark eventually finds out about that. But yeah, that's like, I guess, another side project they're working on. And Cecil tried to sit there and be able to send those units out to help Mark, but obviously they're not ready. I think they just died like 3 days ago. So, and their skin is so damn near impenetrable, it's hard for them to work on it. So Cecil's stressed, he closes the door and leaves off in a tiff. And then we cut to actual Eve in the hospital. She wakes up, she has a broken leg, and she's ready to go help her man. And hey, everybody, I need a girl like Eve, man. If Eve has a broken leg and she's willing to sit there and risk life and limb to go save Mark and everything, then what's your girl doing? You know what I'm saying? If your girl not willing to sit there and fight a 7-foot jacked old man with a Thanos arm, is she really your girl for real? Then we cut back to Mark getting dog shit, still getting beat out of him, and he tries to fight back. He tries to go back and forth with Conquest, but Conquest then tells him that he's been playing with him this whole time, and he's starting to kick it up a notch and start dragging my boy through the city. And of course, it just gets more and more graphic if we keep going. Then Oliver tried to come in and try to save Mark again, but this time Conquest was ready for him and slaps the absolute purple off my boy. He slaps the purple off him, and he even lose a couple teeth at this point. Then Conquest presses Oliver, and like, it's the most chilling scene in the whole episode. He takes Oliver feet in one hand, hands and arms in the other hand, and starts splitting him in half, and then describing how wonderful it will be to sit there and rip out his heart and eat it after he rips him in half and all his organs and everything fall out. So it's a very, very graphic scene. It's absolute graphic and very gruesome. You can just hear Oliver in absolute agony and the blood dripping from him and everything. It's absolutely insane. But of course, Invincible steps in last second to save his little brother. And then we come back to Eve, and she's talking to Cecil again, and she's pressing the hell out of Cecil, say, hey, you gotta take me there regardless. I'm not gonna sit there and let my boo bear sit there and get tossed up like this by this 7'2" Goliath right here. So she eventually convinces Cecil to sit there and bring her back, and then we cut right back to Mark, and he's still getting the absolute dog shit, still getting kicked out of him. But then remnants of season 1 happens again, and he ends up taking Mark and dragging him through the city and sitting there dragging his face through a bunch of people. I don't know what the Viltrumites like kink is with this, but apparently it's something very common they like to do. I guess drag you through a bunch of people you care about. But like, yeah, he did the same thing freaking Omni-Man did from season 1, and he absolutely enjoyed it, of course. And Mark's just sitting there just taking it. He has no choice. This dude's like 1,000 years older than him, I guess. Eventually then Cecil and Eve arrives, and he drops Eve off, and then Mark tries to tell Eve, do not come here, you gotta go. And of course Conquest like, boy, sit the fuck down, and then breaks his leg in half. And that's a very, very strong leg. You break that upper thigh bone right there, you're not recovering for a long time, because it's one of like the hardest bones in your body apparently. And when you break that joint, it's an absolute agony. So Mark is in absolute agony, and he just falls down to the ground. And then we get a little bit of Conquest versus Adam Eve. Adam Eve, she got very creative in this part. And I like to see that she wasn't only using pink constructs, like the part when she was just sitting there using her water and sitting there making the air density thicker to slow down Conquest and things of that nature. It was pretty cool. So it wasn't just pink constructs, but obviously she just couldn't do anything. It just got to the point where Conquest eventually, let's just say she gave Eve the ace treatment. That's what happened. She turned into Porgus the Ace. She fell to the ground. Mark is grieving her. Then Mark sits there and taps into his inner Rick Grimes and made him a promise that he was going to die that day. It was just so badass and chilling to me that Mark sat there and just turned up like that, and he just charges at Conquest, and they had a giant epic clash, and it ended up breaking Mark's arm and Conquest's arm in the process. Then, so with a broken arm and broken leg, Conquest grabs Mark and starts bear hugging and squeezing him, with claiming that his anger does not make him stronger. Then Mark goes Super Saiyan 5 and does another Rick Grimes type thing and ends up biting off a piece of Conquest, I guess, trap or something right here. And it caught Conquest by surprise, and they just going back and forth with the one arm and one leg that Mark got. So I try to fight this freaking Goliath, hitting him as hard as he freaking can, but it's not really doing too much because it's just not. As Mark is just, he's hitting him with everything he can, but he just don't got enough juice at this point. But in the background of their going back and forth, Eve is slowly getting back up and putting herself back together in the background of their clash. And then we pan back to Mark and Conquest. Conquest eventually gets the upper hand on Mark and starts choking him out on the ground and gave him this absolutely memed out speech about him being super lonely and how all the Viltrumites hate him because he's unstable and he's not a good person, boo hoo hoo. You know what I'm saying? He just started talking crazy, talking about how he's so lonely and everyone thinks he's unhinged. It's a very absolutely chilling speech. It is. I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan did an absolute fantastic job showing just how unhinged his character was. But as he was about to finish off Mark, finally Eve pops up in this form that looks very, very similar. If you ever watched Ben 10 and Gwen in that universe, she's basically, I guess, this hybrid alien purple thing. That's kind of what Adam Eve's form reminded me of. She looked like that giant purple form that Gwen from Ben 10 has. So she sits there and hit him with an affinity blast and rips off Conquest's skin and clothes, and he's in absolutely agony. And Mark is absolutely relieved to see that Eve is still alive. Conquest immediately gets back up and said, this time I'm going to make sure that I finish her off. And that sets Mark absolutely over the edge. So he sits there and hit him with the Falcon Punch of a lifetime, knocks Conquest on the ground, and Mark's trying to like punch Conquest's head in as hard as he can, but eventually Conquest grabs his arm, breaks his hand, and said, I got enough juice to still finish you off. But then Mark locks all the way the fuck in, saying, I understand it now, and said, yeah, you can sit there, you don't have enough juice to sit there and beat me. And then he started head-butting this man's head into the ground pavement. This is the second dude that Mark has sat there and grounded their head to dust into the ground. And I'm liking it. I don't know if the success rate is very effective, but I like that he turns up at this point. And basically, he eventually defeats Conquest. Conquest's head is absolutely pudding on the ground. Then finally, Cecil and all the Guardians of the Globe finally pop up as Mark collapses and Adam Eve is collapsed. And yeah, and then we sit there and that's the end of the Conquest versus Adam Eve and Mark Invincible fight. Then we cut to the next phase of the episode where basically everything's starting to calm down, everything's starting to cool down. Rex's funeral happens later on, and Mark is relieved to see that Eve is still alive. They end up having some alone time, if you know what I'm saying. Mark eventually sees Conquest's body aftermath after everything that happened to him, and he said, make sure you burn his body. At this point, when I saw Cecil say, yeah, I'm gonna make sure I get it done, I thought that he was gonna sit there and try to turn Conquest into a reanimate just like the other Marks, but apparently no, that was not the route they went. Apparently Cecil had the bright-eyed idea, lock up, like, I guess Conquest in this super underground basement or something like that, and when he wakes up, they're going to sit there and try to interrogate him. And that's the stupidest logic I've ever seen someone in a show try to use, because Cecil, I expected you to be a lot smarter than that. What makes you think that if Mark barely stood a chance to sit there and just knock him out, like, this dude survived his head getting turned into like tomato paste, and you really think that like you're going to be able to hold him in anything? No, if you anything, you should have just let Mark finish the job. That's what should have happened. You should have burnt him, finished the job, and call it a day. I know he wants to learn more about the Viltrum Empire, but I don't think it's worth it at this point. So Battle Beast is floating in space after ripping the other Viltrumite that he was fighting for however God knows long. The first thing he says when he gets back up and unfrozen is more. So all he is, you know, he's just ABG. Anybody can get it. He just wakes up looking for Fade. The little squid pink joints are coming back next season. Obviously, they're building like a whole underground army or something like that. So that's gonna be a problem next season and everything. But I think the most interesting part of this whole season, or this whole season finale to me, was the Dark Blood scene. It was like an after credit scene, and Dark Blood he's returned, and he actually summoned a different demon, and he promised the other demon a new host for him to sit there and I guess reclaim his dark throne or something of that nature. So this arc apparently wasn't in the books. I've never read the books, so please don't spoil anything for me. But I've never read the books, but apparently I saw on Twitter that this arc or Dark Blood coming back was never really in the books, or whatever they're about to do with Dark Blood wasn't canon. So like, it's actually interesting to see them diverge from the books, but at the same time it's kind of scary, because we've seen a lot of times where things were adapted from books and then people diverged and it was absolutely garbage and trash. But I have faith in Invincible that they can sit there and make this something very interesting. I hope they do, because I like Dark Blood. I like the idea of him, and I'm very curious to see what type of host they really want to do. You know what I'm saying? Is it Omni-Man they're talking about, or is it Mark? Because for my personal theory, I believe they're talking about Omni-Man, because that's the last person I think Dark Blood really saw that was at the top of the world before he got sent back to hell. But we'll see next season. I'm very actually interested to see what happens. But now we can get into the next part of my video. The next part of my video, I'm going to be addressing some of the criticisms of season 3, episode number 8. So we can get into a little bit of that. So IGN, I believe, made a post. It was some type of article, something like that, giving, I think, this season finale like a 4 out of 10 or something like that. It was some super egregious score, and I just want to sit there and say on a record that no, this is not a 4 out of 10 season finale. No, and no, I don't think IGN is very reputable at this point, because if you watch Moist Critical, he's exposed that IGN has given way shittier projects way higher reviews and way higher numbers and stuff like that. So no, I will not sit there and concede to the fact that this is a 4 out of 10 or whatever out of 10. Anything lower than a 9 out of 10 season finale, in my personal opinion. I feel as though they wrapped off the season very cleanly and very greatly. I love the way how Conquest came in and just basically took over the last episode and just showed how much of a freaking threat he was. I loved how it took everything out of Mark and Eve and everybody involved to sit there and take down this dude named Conquest. And I loved how I loved the timing of it too. It just, you could just tell that everything was depleted. But to be honest, I honestly think they got lucky in defeating Conquest, because before all the other guys got involved, because let's just think about it. Outside of Mark and Eve, who else was going to be able to sit there and even slow Conquest down? So I love that the timing of all this happened straight after the Invincible War. So yeah, I think it was a pretty fire. And another criticism I saw on the season finale was the voice acting and the animation. I believe that the animation was fine, in my opinion. Yes, if you watch back and you zoom in and you pause at certain moments, or you like really harp on very precise moments, yeah, you're going to see some imperfections. Like I believe there's some scenes where Conquest accidentally has 2 eyes instead of like freaking 1, and yeah, you can sit there and see some stuff in the background might be a little off. But my personal opinion, I don't think it's that important in the grand scheme of things. I believe it's still a very enjoyable watch if you want to sit there and just enjoy it on a normal level. If you actually just watch the show and just enjoy the story and enjoy like what's actually there, and not just being a huge stickler on like, oh my gosh, look at this background character here, oh my god, look at this building. Like if you watch the season finale like a normal person and not trying to be some dude that just wants to be outside the loop or be edgy or something like that, you're going to enjoy the season finale. I think the animation was fine, and I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Some people said they didn't like him being Conquest. I love him being Conquest. I'm a little bit biased because I've been following his career for a long time, from Grey's Anatomy all the way to Supernatural, all the way to The Boys and stuff like that. And I loved how he sounded and how his speeches and how his unhinged rant sounded in this. So I enjoyed the animation. I enjoy the voice acting, and no, I don't believe the voice acting has any part of why the animation, I guess, is falling off. I think the animation is fine, and y'all guys need to go touch some grass if you're sitting there looking at this animation and zooming in on pixels and everything. So what is wrong with y'all? But overall, I love the ending. I love the direction they're going with this show. And I can't wait to sit there and see some more of it, man. So, sorry, y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, man. Don't forget, I have another part to this video coming out real soon. It's going to be a debate between me and my brothers about the Invincible series. And the Invincible season finale is going to get real spicy, man. It's an hour long. And I'm going to try to edit it down as much as I can. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video, man. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Y'all new, y'all. And I'm out, y'all. Peace.